everyone, and welcome to the Fond du Lac Area Women's Fund's first ever virtual edition of Project Table Talk. I'm Maria Turner, the Executive Director for the Women's Fund, and I'll be your host today, bringing you what our board, volunteers, and staff at the Women's Fund all hope will be the stories and insights from around Fond du Lac County that bring to life our mission of facilitating bold change for women and girls throughout Fond du Lac. We will be coming together at 1 o'clock on the second and fourth Thursdays of each month on Facebook and hopefully several other social media platforms. So be looking for those opportunities to watch us on your favorite platform. Each time we'll chat with at least one guest from our community on a topic that primarily affects women and girls in hopes of a couple of things. One, educating. We want to bring you information that perhaps you've never heard about before. And then we also want to raise awareness specifically around our foundational pillars, and those being safety, dignity, and freedom from violence, economic self-sufficiency, leadership development, education, and women's health issues. So today, for our very first program, I am joined by Erin Flood, who serves on our board of directors and is also a nationally certified Green Dot Bystander Intervention Training Program. Erin has been absolutely instrumental in bringing the Green Dot program to Fond du Lac, but not just bringing it here, but also keeping it going. So we initially kicked this off in June of 2019 with a community-wide event. And of course, COVID struck in 2020, but we are continuing on with our efforts to bring Green Dot to our community. Erin is also a former school administrator and teacher, a mom of 2 boys, a wife, and facilitator of her own podcast called The United State of Us. So big welcome to Erin. And if we could just start, Erin, by letting people know, giving them an overview of how Green Dot came to be, a little bit of a timeline / history on the program here in Fond du Lac.
Yes, Maria. Hi, thank you so much for having me with you today. I'm so excited to kick this off and just really honored to be part of the Fond du Lac Area Women's Fund and to be able to be an integral part specifically of this initiative, Green Dot. So in 2018, one of the committees of our board, the Community Education Committee, decided that we would best serve the community by having a program specifically that supported the work that Fond du Lac Says No More was doing. And so Julianne Troicke, the chair of community education at the time, along with Dr. Alan Patterson, said, you know what, let's look around at what other communities have. And one program that specifically stood out was something that Marian University had brought to their campus at the time, specifically to fulfill some requirements for their student athletes. And their program was Green Dot. And so through investigation there and talking to other communities, specifically in Alaska, some in Florida, and it seems to be kind of on the coast and creeping toward the center. They found that Green Dot would be something that would really, really fit our initiative well. And that was to make sure that the women and children of our community were safe and free from violence, because we know that no one can become the leader of tomorrow without feeling safe today. And so this just fit the initiative beautifully. And so we knew that in order to get the program off the ground, we had to start talking to donors. And we are so incredibly blessed to have been connected with Lacey Saddoff. And she chose to make the very first gift from her foundation to support Green Dot training in Fond du Lac. And it gives me goosebumps to talk about it because just so much faith that she had as a female leader of a big, company in Badger Liquor in our community. And the fact that she wanted to make sure that her very first donation from her foundation was to supporting women and children in our community, I think was just incredible. And obviously spoke so much to the faith that she had in the Fond du Lac Area Women's Fund to carry out this mission of supporting the women and girls or women and children of Fond du Lac to be free from violence. And so we brought trainers in from Altruistic, the company that oversees the Green Dot program. We had 43 people from Fond du Lac County, everyone from representatives, there we go, of the police department and hospital staff, people that worked in domestic violence and sexual assault, to just people who were interested in being volunteers in the community. We all came together for 4 really intensive days and were trained on how to help people, help bystanders in our community who had decided that we wanted to make sure that everyone who was in Fond du Lac knew that we just will not tolerate a culture of violence. That as bystanders, we will step in, we will say something, and hopefully that will lead to a bigger effort toward violence prevention, because we know that we really need to affect culture change in order to create the difference that we want to create. And this program certainly has helped us start that.
So, I love the just you being able to speak and give people some perspective on how it materialized and just the unbelievable amount of community support, not only from donors, but from volunteers. One thing is that people should know is Green Dot is all community volunteers stepping forward to give time. They gave that time to be trained. No one had to have any particular background in domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse. You could just be an everyday individual who really was passionate about this particular issue coming forward to get trained. So I think that part is just amazing. Obviously, Lacey, as you indicated, being a woman leader in this community, stepping forward and putting her support behind it. That's cool as well. So just a lot of really positivity surrounding that story, which, I just love. What hasn't been so positive is, COVID in 2020. So this, 2019, we kind of really kicked butt. We had some great involvement. Agnesian SSM Health, wow, they did an amazing job implementing this in all of their nurse training within the hospital. So the nurses over at Agnesian SSM during 2019 had opportunities to learn about the bystander intervention training program, which was amazing, great allies to have in this work. Then 2020 strikes, right? And like everyone, we had to reimagine what Green Dot was going to look like and how were we going to continue to deliver this. And so far, so good. We're getting a little bit more steam under ourselves now, and we'll talk about that a little bit later with the virtual trainings. But before we get to some of that, Erin, one thing that I love about Green Dot and the training is they ask us as trainers to really reflect on and share our why. Why are we passionate? Why do we want to do this and give this amount of time and energy to this effort? So can you just talk to us a little bit about what your why is? Why are you involved?
Yeah, I'm happy to share. I guess my why is twofold. One, as an educator, I was obviously in contact with so many kids over my tenure as a teacher and school administrator. And I know that until someone is safe, they can't learn, they can't thrive, they can't all the rest of the great things that I think are really meant to happen in our lives, can't happen until that basic need of safety is met. And so I saw the ramifications of that in my classroom, and always really tried to advocate for voices that maybe did not have someone else to advocate for them. But I also, growing up, I had, some best girlfriends, and I always thought our lives were kind of parallel, running in the same circles and doing a lot of the same activities. And as an adult, I found out that one of the things that really changed the trajectory of our adult lives was the fact that, domestic violence had been present in one of those, very close friends' lives. And it absolutely changed the trajectory of her life. That trauma, when the trauma is not dealt with, can really, as we all know, have just really horrific consequences. And I think as an adult looking back as on your experiences as a kid, you think, well, why didn't I notice, or why didn't I, and maybe even, hindsight's 2020, looking back, you did. I don't know that we really had the tools, and that the discussions in our community were what would have brought about the confidence to step in and say something as a bystander. And I'm so grateful now that Green Dot gives us a language and a really accessible way as a bystander to step in, and make a difference, and hopefully either stop or prevent future violence from happening. Because I don't ever want to see anybody else be in the situation that I was in as a bystander, or that my friend was in. And so I guess there are no second chances, but there certainly is opportunity to learn a new skill and hopefully not repeat something from the past. And Green Dot certainly gives me an opportunity to hopefully do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that I, having had experience, worked at Harbor House domestic abuse programs in Appleton for 7 years. So got to see a lot of women and children directly affected by domestic violence. And, the thing that just always struck me about that was, the kids in particular, they don't get to choose their families. And so whatever we can do as a community to look at the prevention side of things, whether that is, formal programming within schools to reach children, which a lot of agencies in Fond du Lac are doing, or something like Green Dot, where we're looking at how adults who are bystanders, and I'll just, the idea of bystander. So bystander is anybody, right? It's just, you're out in your community, you see something happen, what do you do, right? And so the beauty of Green Dot helps people understand in those moments where you may not even be sure if anything real is happening, but you have an icky feeling about it, right? And so it provides tools to do that. When we talk a little bit about ending generational cycles of abuse, anyone who's ever worked in any of these spheres will tell you that it is about prevention efforts. And while shelters and programs do as much as they can along prevention, that has to be secondary to crisis intervention. Their roles as direct client service providers are to take care of the physical and emotional needs of the women and children and men who come to their door. And that has to happen first. So what I found was so much time, human resources, the advocates' time, the dollars that donors were giving were having to be put toward addressing a victim's trauma, rightly so. That's why those programs exist. So what I love about what we're doing at the Women's Fund is we're helping on that prevention piece, that there's somewhat of a gap. So Solution Center, ASTOP, Agnesian SSM, Domestic Violence Services, the counties, Workers and Child Protective Service, they are all doing that boots on the ground. We are helping victims and survivors through the trauma. The Women's Fund is stepping in and doing more of a global perspective on it, or I should say systemic perspective on it, in wanting to, if you get to prevention, we can change it for the future. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that I'm communicating that correctly in terms of how excited I am for Green Dot and being able to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, you just bring up a good point that this work, and you alluded to it earlier too, the work that we're doing with Green Dot is all volunteer. This is obviously we need donor dollars to make sure that the program, the materials, all the things that we need to fund the program continue. But the education is being done in our community by passionate volunteers. These are people that all have a why, like we do. You know, everyone has been touched by this, that volunteers with us in some way, whether it's just by the industry that they're working in, the clientele that they deal with, or in their own personal lives. And so I think this focus on prevention versus meeting the immediate, like acute needs of whatever situation someone is in is really filling a gap. And I think too, it serves as a unifier. It's great in our community to be able to teach common language, to, you know, we're going to talk in a little while about the 3Ds that we talk about in part of our programming, to be able to teach people similar ways, again, to promote a certain culture in our community about kind of being our brother and our sister's keeper. That's what we really need to create that culture change. All of those other, you know, organizations that you mentioned are doing incredible work. And this just supports that, right? This hopefully provides more of that overarching prevention piece to say, you guys continue to do what our community so desperately needs, which is those resources for people who are really in the thick of some very scary situations. We're going to do everything we can to hopefully make less of those situations for you to deal with. And to, I think too, to just empower people in our community to, when you see something that your gut says like, maybe somebody just needs a little help, like let's have some resources or some tools to help the people in our community do that in a way that's safe for them and effective for the people that maybe just need help.
Yeah. You know, as I alluded to earlier, I'm like a huge proponent of prevention education, because, like I said, I spent a lot of time seeing the aftermath of individuals who ended up in the shelter, and it was you know, really sad to see how difficult of a situation that always was for the women, the kids, everybody associated. But the thing that I love is when people know more, you can do more, right? And so Green Dot is one way for us to know more. It's a way to, you know, actually do something. One of the things Green Dot says is no one can do everything, but everybody can do something, right? And so I love that, because it's like sometimes when we look at issues like domestic violence or sexual assault or child abuse and neglect, it's like, oh my Lord, this is such a big thing. It's been around, you know, since the beginning of time. Like, how can I, as one individual, really make a dent in this? And it is about unifying people. It's about bringing people together to learn how to effectively deal with that. And Green Dot, what I love about it is because the trainings I had been in related to these topics previously always kind of took a standpoint of getting directly involved as a bystander, you know, and that's not comfortable. That's not comfortable for even people that can be very, outgoing and outspoken. There's just certain situations where not everyone feels comfortable just jumping right in. And so I think the propensity in those situations is just, I'm just going to walk away, right? And so tell me a little bit about the beauty, what I consider the beauty of Green Dot with having the 3Ds.
Okay, so the three Ds are really just three simple words that give us options for what to do when we either are in a situation where we're witnessing something that we feel like is going to lead to a situation that's dangerous, an act of power-based personal violence, or a way to when we are already in the situation to help the person that's in the middle of that dangerous situation. So one is direct. That means I witnessed something and I can directly, for example, I see a couple arguing and they're my friends, I know both of them, I might directly walk up to the person who's maybe the aggressor and say, hey, are you okay? Will you come over here and just help me with this really quick? I know you're in the middle of this conversation, but will you just come with me? Okay. And I'm directly getting involved in that situation. And I'm actually using the second D, which is distract.
Mm-hmm.
So I could directly get myself involved. And some people might be saying, well, why don't you call them out on your behavior? You know what? If that's what you're comfortable with, then when you directly involve yourself, you could also say, hey, I'm not comfortable with what's going on here. Let's just walk away from each other. Let's everybody de-escalate,
Mm-hmm.
and let's have the conversation later. And remember, your goal as a bystander is to always stop the thought process, kind of that hamster wheel that tends to start to circulate when a situation of like really intense emotion begins to take place. So I could directly say, hey, I'm not comfortable. I could distract the person by saying, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I know this looks heated, but could you come over here with me and help me with whatever? And it might be something as simple as pulling like a stereotypical girl move where you ask somebody to go to the bathroom with you, or anything to just disrupt the conversation. And then the third D is delegate. That means I'm in a situation and I think, gosh, I'm not sure I have the skill set to stop whatever's going on from happening. So instead, maybe in that same situation where my friends are in an argument and I say instead to my husband, hey, you can talk that person down. You go over and interrupt that and tell them that that's not okay. And you go take care of it. So the reason why direct, distract, and delegate are such great tools is because it gives us options. And Maria, you mentioned that some people might have a fear that gets in the way of them doing something, or maybe it's something we were taught when we were young, like mind your own business. That's none of your business. You stay over here and let them handle their, we all have things in our head or in our heart that keep us from stepping in sometimes, even when we think, ooh, I really should step in.
Mm-hmm.
It not only allows you to honor those things, but also says you can honor that and still get involved and make a huge impact on someone's life. Whether that's, again, directly by getting involved and saying something about an incident that's taking place, by distracting somebody to help avoid whatever might continue to happen, or by delegating and saying, gosh, I really don't have the skill set, but I know who does. And I'm not going to do nothing. I'm going to get the person that has the right skill set to help intervene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I think the thing I want to stress about how important this is that when we started Fond du Lac Says No More, we worked with the Fond du Lac Police Department, who is one of our primary partners in Fond du Lac Says No More initiative. And we wanted to know, well, okay, how prevalent is this in Fond du Lac County, right? And everyone wants to believe that they live in Pleasantville, right? And so domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse happens somewhere else. It happens in those big cities. It happens in another place, not in Fond du Lac. And the statistics held up. 1 in 4 women will face domestic violence at some point in their lives. 1 in 6 will be a victim of sexual assault at some point. Every 8 seconds, a child is abused or neglected. So all of those statistics are very much relevant to this community. And that's why it's important that the more people we can get trained with Green Dot and being able to intervene and be that bystander that says something, hopefully the fewer of those incidents that will continue to occur. A lot of people will ask us, well, what is the green dot? The green dot is addressing a red dot, and a red dot is stop. That's a bad situation that has happened. And so, we're working for the goes, the green, put it over the top of any reds or prevent a red from ever happening. So, okay, you knew this. We both knew this was going to happen. We could talk about this for, hours, right? So let's just kind of wrap it up here a little bit. I think we've at least given the community an idea of what Green Dot is about, and we'll talk, I'll give some training dates so people can actually take the training and get involved here in a minute. But just in closing, what's the biggest thing you'd like people in Fond du Lac County to know about the Women's Fund stepping forward to lead Green Dot here?
I think the Fond du Lac Area Women's Fund is a group of men and women that care really deeply about the ability of every single member of this community to feel safe and valued, to have the opportunity to thrive, and we're people that really want to serve our community. And so our desire to do that has caused us to take, I think, what I consider pretty massive action to support the people in our community that you've mentioned already that are doing really incredible work to prevent violence. We want to support them, and we want to take the prevention efforts to change the culture of our community in a really positive way, to say, hey, people of Fond du Lac County, no more. We're not going to tolerate a culture of violence in this community. That's not where we want to live. That's not where we want to how we want to raise our families. That's not how we value you. And so I just I see us as people who want to support and unify the efforts that are already taking place. And I'm just really thankful that whether it's Agnesian Domestic Violence or Solution Center or the police department, that they've all said, yes, we would love to have people, to unify our efforts. Let's do it. And thanks for being the unifier. I mean, I think that's pretty cool. And I'm proud to be a part of that. And I'm proud to be a part of a community where so many positive things are already taking place that we can kind of circle around and join the efforts.
Well, and I'm proud of you. I mean, I can't thank you enough, Erin, for spearheading this aspect of what the Women's Fund has been doing in recent years with Fond du Lac Says No More, being one of the most committed trainers, along with Bill Bunzel, Tracy Westerbarth, Amy Beyer, David Fancione. I'm sure I didn't say his name right, but there's been a real core group of individual trainers that have picked up the lion's share of work on this. So I can't thank you enough for that. So just as I wrap up here, I'm just going to share just a little bit more information here with all of you. If today's session has piqued your interest in getting involved in actually taking a Green Dot training session, our next one is Friday, tomorrow at 10 a.m. There is a Facebook event. You can link in on that. Or you can go to FDLSAYSNOMORE.com find out all about the Fond du Lac Says No More initiative. You can find out more information about Green Dot. And there is a link in there where you can RSVP for upcoming training sessions. Right now, we're doing all of those virtually. We have one a month planned for the first 6 months of 2021. And then we do hope to go back to in-person sessions, which we had partnered with the Fond du Lac Y to do those, which again, you know, like this community partnership. None of this is possible unless we're all working together to make this a culture change here in Fond du Lac County. So we'd also like to offer to anyone, so maybe you want to have a personalized session, whether that is in person or virtually. We are willing and able to do that and love that aspect of things, because it's an opportunity for your work group. For example, well, not last year, the year before now, the fall of 2019, we went to C.D. Smith and we did a lunch and learn. These are 1 hour trainings, so we can get it done in an hour. And bring this information to your employees, help them be better equipped, because domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, they all have impacts on workplaces too. Billions of dollars lost in worker productivity because of those issues. So important to bring those into the workplaces, and we are equipped to do that. If you want to do that, you can email me directly, and my email address is FDLAWomensFund@gmail.com. FDLAWOMENSFUND@gmail.com. With that, we're going to conclude our very first Project Table Talk virtual edition here, which is part of the Fond du Lac Says No More initiative. And it's a collaborative effort, like we've talked about. Our other key partners in this are ASTOP, Sexual Assault Programs, Solutions Center, Agnesian, SSM Health, Domestic Violence Services, and the Fond du Lac Police Department. It's been the 5 of us pushing this effort forward, and I'm really thankful for their involvement in everything we've done. So thank you again. Hopefully we will see you for these again, second and fourth Thursdays at 1 o'clock. Typically try to keep them to a half hour to 40 minutes. And the next one is February 11th, and then we'll have one February 25th. We're hoping to touch on the topics of Black history. February is Black History Month, and teen dating violence, because February is also Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. So join us then, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks, Maria.
Thank you.